And we are back. Welcome to the webinar titled Driving ROI through ROO, Return on Optimization. My name is Joshua Shinani, partner in charge of the Manufacturing and Distribution Group at Sachs LLP. Sachs is a multidisciplinary accounting, tax, and advisory firm headquartered in Clifton, New Jersey. Our M&D industry practice is the largest vertical that the firm serves. Sachs is also a top 100 accounting firm in the country as identified by Inside Public Accounting. Ongoing technological advances and increasing customer demands are transforming the supply chain industry at an unprecedented pace. To be successful in this rapidly changing business environment, your company will need to consider new and better ways to meet customer requirements and allocate the right people and resources quickly, efficiently, and profitably. Advantage Technology Solutions, Sachs's manufacturing and distribution practice, Atlantic Handling Systems, and Mantis have joined forces to provide you with essential, need-to-know insights from industry experts on technology and the supply chain revolution. We hope to help you expand your customer base, enhance your revenue stream, and optimize the operational efficiency, profitability, and security of your business. I'm very proud to be joined by three esteemed colleagues and influencers in the supply chain environment, Sandy Vosk, John Cosgrove, and Neil O'Kane. Gentlemen, please introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Sandy Vosk, founder and CEO of Advantage Technology Solutions. We help our clients ensure their investments in technology improve their profitability, their operational efficiency, and the ability to satisfy their customer demands.
I'm John Cosgrove, founder and president of Atlantic Handling Systems. Atlantic Handling Systems is a leading material handling solution provider. I have over 40 years of experience in the material handling and supply chain industries and have served as the past president of the Material Handling Equipment Dealers Association.
I'm Neil O'Kane, the Optimization Manager with Mantis Americas. Mantis is a Tier 1 WMS and software solutions provider. I've been working in the supply chain industry for approximately 13 years now. I have experience running startups in 3 different countries, always with high-volume distribution centers, mainly focusing on technology, automation, and process improvement.
So without any further ado, let me share today's agenda, driving ROI through ROO. And we'll begin with some supply chain industry trends and challenges, where there are opportunities for profit in your companies, keys to success in terms of space, labor, and picking. We'll have a couple of questions and then a summary at the end. So we all know that e-commerce is continuing to grow at exponential rates. This past Thanksgiving 2019, record online sales of $4.2 billion in the U.S. represented a 14.5% increase from 2018, according to Adobe Analytics. Consumers spent $7.4 billion online, an increase of $1.2 billion over Black Friday in 2018, making it the biggest Black Friday ever for digital sales. A record $9.4 billion was spent online by the end of Cyber Monday, an increase of 19.7% from 2018. It was the largest online shopping day of all time in the U.S., easily surpassing last year's $7.9 billion. And we all know that it's not going to stop. So today, what we want to do is focus on some of the key areas and challenges affecting you folks. And, when looking at industry research, we see that, the top areas of concern relate to order management, fulfilling more orders, reducing errors, obtaining enough labor, dealing with increased customer expectations faster, and simultaneously trying to reduce costs. The U.S. economy continues to stay strong, with customers continuing to buy more and demand more. Costs are going to continue to rise in storage, labor, and shipping. There are labor shortages across the supply chain in trucking, warehouse operations, and supply chain professionals, and the projections for the near future are even worse. To address these challenges requires innovation, investment, and continuous improvement in your people, processes, and technologies. In terms of bottlenecks preventing greater supply chain adaptability, let's just focus on the top two, inventory management and order fulfillment, which is what this webinar is all about. First, a lot depends on what kind of product your company is making, distributing, storing, shipping, and selling. For some of you, this may involve food, medicine, and other products that require extensive lot tracking. Whatever that may be, the best solutions begin with a well-designed warehouse, combined with quality material handling equipment, and a strong WMS warehouse management system to support your business. Avoiding bottlenecks requires digital communication with your customers, real-time scanning, and a combination of planning, monitoring, and execution. If that's not in place, change can kill you. Many companies don't have service level agreements in place, and their customer expectations continue to put stress on the organization. So it's my pleasure to introduce Neil to talk more about where those opportunities for profit are within the warehouse.
Yeah, thanks, Sandy. So one of the first things that we want to talk about and kind of understand a little bit is the general warehouse rules of thumb, to understand where are these opportunities, where are the greatest opportunities within your DC. So out of your total warehouse spending, out of your total warehouse budget, you're usually about 10% in your capital, 30% on footprint, 60% of your overall spend is on the labor side of it. Out of your labor, you might be 20% in receiving, about 15% in your put away, another 15% in shipping, and 50% of that 100% of your labor you usually sink into your picking. Now, if we break down the picking side of it a little bit, 45% of your picker's time is spent searching for the right product or handling the product. 55% of it is travel, the time it takes to actually get to that product. So by and large, your travel is one of your greatest opportunities for optimization, for improvement within your distribution center.
Neil, let me ask you a question. In your experience, where do you see the biggest disconnect between how the resources should be allocated versus how they really are allocated?
What we tend to see quite a bit in any kind of distribution center, the picking is usually where everybody's looking. You have your directors, you have your warehouse managers, your logistics managers, right? The picking is really what makes it money. The picking is where you get the product out the door. That's obviously what's gonna drive your business. So these are the employees that we really push, you really whip your pickers out of anybody else. So a lot of the times, instead of taking a deep dive to see what are my pickers doing, the easiest way is just to go and throw more people at it and say, well, I have an increase in volume, or we have a new season coming up, seasonalities, and so we say, well, I'm going to bring in some temp labor, I'm going to bring in some part-timers, I'm going to throw more people at it, as opposed to taking that one step back for those two steps forward to say, how can I make things more efficient with what I have, potentially even save on what I have and get a greater return.
That's so true, so true.
So like I was just talking about, this is where the majority of the opportunities are going to come from. You might be in the upper 5%, 5 to 12% opportunities to save some space. MHE and racking are going to will definitely give you some returns, and there's definitely ways to optimize. It's going to be a pretty small percentage of your overall savings. The labor is where we can really save some time and save some money. Right, the space utilization, again, your picking area, your shipping dock to your picking area, this is where we're going to see the most amount of opportunities. Right, as far as our actual labor costs go, how do we break down this labor cost? We've talked about the percentage of time or the percentage of money that you spend. Again, we said about 15% in your receiving. Your order picking, again, by far is the most, your greatest cost.
The one thing I want to add on that is, that's an increasing problem with e-commerce and drop shipping, and, moving from, traditional, quote unquote, when companies used to ship pallets or cases, but now the whole dynamics are changing as to what it takes to fulfill an order. John, what I'm saying.
Now we're shipping eaches. And we're doing pick pack as opposed to shipping out pallets or cases in a lot of cases. So that, you know, the productivity has to be, you know, achieved by having the product closer to our pickers and to give them a direct route to pick those items.
And this isn't about, hey, how do I make more profit? For some companies, this is about survival. I mean, Josh, we know companies that this is about survival right now.
100%. The economy is very tough. There's a lot of competition, and you know, a couple cents here, a couple cents there, it all adds up pretty quickly.
And the consumers are so demanding today that they can get a product in a day. So it's sometimes the same day. So they're so demanding that our customers have to meet those levels of expectation to survive.
Like, the whole picking process is definitely becoming much more labor intensive, and as you guys said, it's some of the smaller companies. Not everybody has the opportunity to be able to go and invest tens, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars in automation to make this easier. So, you know, we want to look at what can we do really at the grassroots level, your boots on the floor level, to say how can we make this more efficient for the everyday distribution center. So when we're looking at our picking, we want to make sure that before we can go through with any sort of optimization, we want to make sure that we're looking at the right touch points of labor. We want to make sure that we're tracking the right KPIs. We want to know where we are, so we know where we're going, so we know where we're going to end up. We want to make sure that everything we're looking at, all the KPIs we're looking at, are actually indicative of each touch point of labor involved. We don't want to make sure we don't miss anything. Anything we miss is a missed opportunity for optimization.
Also, just quick on KPIs, and a lot of companies don't have them, or, you know, they have too little or too many. And, you know, so it's really about how are they capturing data and making business decisions. It's really very critical in terms of managing change from my perspective.
It's strategic. It needs to be, you know, have a process and be followed to make improvements and to keep things going, to flow.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Sandy, you talk about competitive advantage, right? When we go into any situation, as I'm sure all of you have, everyone wants to know what their competitors are doing and what do their benchmarks look like and what is it that makes them successful and why am I struggling, and you know, to be able to speak to economics in that level of detail is very important.
So we want to make sure that we touch on all of the touch points of labor, whether they're direct functions or whether they're the indirect functions, even some things as small as the verification process. Are we verifying, you know, 10%, 50%, 100% of the products that are coming in? This can be very labor intensive. Same thing on the outbound side. So we don't want to miss the things like the checking and the wrapping and the loading. If we're wrapping things by hand, it's a little bit different than if we're using an automated wrapping machine. And what are the you know, the general speeds of it? And all of this kind of plays into the time it takes to get the product picked, get it on the dock, and get it out the door. So this is all kind of incorporated in that 55% of your overall spend in your DC. And then, of course, when we're actually picking the product, we can't discount the actual travel. Now, you know, what we see a lot of people don't necessarily realize, there's different kinds of travel within a warehouse, within a DC. You have your travel direct or your direct travel, which is you get a picker, he jumps on a forklift, it has a constant acceleration, it has an acceleration speed, it has a constant speed, and he goes off to his picking area. It usually goes about twice as fast as any other sort of picking within the warehouse, or what we call the perambulation. Now, this is when a picker will get inside the storage medium, whether it's in a pick module, whether it's in just a typical, you know, adjustable pallet rack or a narrow aisle racking. The preambulation is the time it takes to, within the racking, move from side to side, move from one SKU to the next, pick off a top level, pick off a bottom level. Now, this usually is about half the speed, or it takes twice the amount of time as the travel direct. So this is something that we really want to look at when we're doing any sort of optimization. It's that picking within the storage medium that we want to take a look at. And now, of course, the right type of storage medium here is huge. We want to make sure that we're, depending on the type of product that we are picking or what we are shipping, we need to have the right kind of storage medium to make it easier for ourselves. And John, I think this is right up your alley.
Right. If you look at this sample warehouse, you know, this is a great example. What happens today, oftentimes we have people who are, we have companies where they're using powered equipment in the aisles. They have pickers with carts. They're serpentining in and out of the aisles. It isn't a safe environment. and it doesn't lend itself, as Neil stated before, 45% of the time is searching and handling the product, and 55% of the time is travel. So that's where the big return on investment can come in if we were to go to the next slide. In our next slide, we show a 4-level high pick module. What we're doing here is we're actually putting the pickers in a very safe environment, no motorized equipment. You see 4 levels of conveyor, powered conveyor in the middle with gravity on each side. We actually feed the product to them through flow racking. So now that they're not walking around, what we do on each level is we can start the order at one end. It can be as simple as scanning the pick ticket and then scanning a box and putting a barcode, creating a license plate on the box. And the WMS will let you do all of those things. And then they can pick and pass or do a zone pick. And we can actually distribute the work evenly throughout the pick module if we have the proper WMS system where they can actually take and pass that down, and when the order is done, they push it on the takeaway conveyor, and we bring it out of this pick module then, and we either bring it to a packing station where they can put in dunnage or do that kind of thing, and then send it to, if you have a high volume, a sorter, which can then send your product to the dock to be shipped.
John, there's so many choices, in this arena alone. How do companies decide, how and which I should be using?
Well, I think what happens with a pick modules are very popular now because it's the type thing you can put a pick module in and you can grow into it. You can put pick the light in, you can put voice pick, you can do all these different things to increase your efficiency at the level of what you would like to spend and get the return on investment. One of the things you do see today is, the European influence of like automatic storage and retrieval systems coming into our country. But you don't see as much of that as you do this. One of the things in Europe, people have a lot of time off, and this speaks to also the problem with the labor shortage today. In Europe, people get 6 to 8 weeks vacation, so a lot of the companies in distribution there, they automate almost everything. Where here, the pick module is flexible. You can pick it clean. If you're selling mass merchandisers, if you have to ticket it, you can load it up, pick it clean, and come back and do another thing. And on multiple levels, you can do different mass merchandisers, that kind of thing. So what happens on the pick module, and today, years ago, we used to ship a pallet full of product to a mass merchandiser. They would then ship it out to their stores. Then we got down to a case level. And now, with the eaches, the pick module is the best solution because with e-commerce, people want it quicker, they want it faster. I mean, if you told me 40 years ago that we'd be shipping within 24 hours products with, only 1 or 2 things in a box, a couple of lines on every order, and, you'd have a notification in your house telling you that it's at your front door. And more, every day as you ride down your street, you'll see packages on people's front steps, and it's all because of distribution, mostly coming out of pick modules.
It's really about how you get more, get more and more out of less, and to figure out how to be innovative in doing that.
And one of the key things here is to make sure that the pick module is slotted in the correct way. I'm going to turn that over to Neil so he can talk about some slotting.
Yeah, thanks, John. So slotting, it's what is slotting? What's the whole idea behind it? Why do we want to do it? What kind of efficiencies are we going to see from it? To boil it down as easily as we can, slotting is just getting the right product in the right place. It really can be that simple. But then, of course, we want to talk about why is the correct slotting important? Why can't I just take, say, my fastest moving product and put it at the front of the aisle? And then, think about, well, my B product's going to go next, my C products, while my slowest movers will be somewhere down there at the back. Obviously, what we're trying to do here is maximize the service to our customers, keep down on that travel at 55% travel, increase our overall throughput, and save as much money and save as much time as we possibly can. So again, we've talked about we're able to reduce the overall cost within our distribution center by correct slotting. We reduce the use of consumables. We can reduce the number of mispicks, reduce the number of damages. Just in my time with Mantis, we've worked somewhat recently with a tier one automotive company here in the United States, and what they were looking to do is build an expansion at a cost of approximately $8 million. Right? They were out of space. They were running at about 98% capacity in their cube utilization. So when we went in there and we took a look at the way they were slotting where all of their products were, and they were storing all their products, slotting all their products based on their overall cube, which absolutely is one way to do it, but we found that there was still quite a bit of wasted space. So what we were able to do was go in and look at a different way of slotting their product. As opposed to looking at their overall cube, we're looking at the orientation of the SKUs within their storage medium. So by going through and just changing the way, looking at things a little bit different, changing the way they slotted the product, this actually resulted in a 43% increase in their cube in their warehouse. So 43% is absolutely huge. Not only did they save that space, they obviously at that point no longer needed this $8 million in expansion. So that obviously is definitely one of our largest success stories. You know, slotting isn't always going to net you $8 million, but it just shows that sometimes looking at things a little bit differently and changing up the way you're storing your products, not even necessarily where you're putting your products, but just how you're storing them, can definitely result in some huge savings.
I just want to add to that. I really think this is extremely powerful, not just in what you said, but for what's coming with autonomous robots. You know, you're only as strong as your weakest link, and you send robots out into a warehouse following the same inefficient processes, you're not going to get the benefits as if, you know, you're really maximizing and then taking advantage of automation, you know, to fill the void where there isn't labor, or to meet the increasing, you know, speeds that we have to get things done.
Absolutely. So we can also look at our ABC cost analysis. So when we know, you know, what's our A mover, what's our B, what's our C movers, the typical way to go, and really most of the time the easiest way to go is just as I said, the A movers go at the front, the B movers go afterwards, and the C movers go right at the end. And again, this is also experience that we've had with some companies where we see that when they are picking these C movers, which you can see on our spreadsheet here, even though we're picking them less often, there's less C movers on each order, it costs 7 times as much to pick your C movers. So even when you do pick this, you're still double, tripling, sometimes quadrupling that travel time, which again is just driving out these efficiencies within your warehouse. So we can see different ways to maybe go to a 2-level pick system, where we have our A movers on the bottom and our C movers are on the top. We're not going to pick them as often, but when we do, we cut our travel by 70% to pick these C movers. So there's always different ways that we can look at things, but understanding what the cost is to pick your products is what's going to drive you to make the right decisions when it comes to proper slotting.
And the 80-20 rule applies, but you can distribute the work accordingly if you're doing a zone pick or a pick and pass by doing that. And also, one of the things is people sometimes hang on to inventory, and the WMS will tell you can set, that we haven't sold this for so long, it's taking up valuable place in the pick module, they could put another SKU in.
Absolutely. And then, like you said, John, the WMS can do it. Different software solutions can really give you some good insight into what you're carrying. I mean, a lot of companies, I think, we're gone past the old days where all of our inventory control was all done with Excel, and if you were going to try to figure out how much dead inventory you have, you know, you're either searching through spreadsheets after spreadsheets after spreadsheets, or physically walking through your warehouse and finding what products can I write my name in the dust on, right? And think, oh, maybe this has been here a little too long. You know, various software solutions can help us to identify what our old product is, how much are we actually shipping, should we really be holding this?
And it also takes a B product and makes it an A product if you need to.
Exactly.
You can change the location, which is really important.
Absolutely. So this is where we can get into, as I said, some of these different software solutions, and I've talked about a few of the success stories that we've had with Mantis. Again, how have we done this? How have we been able to do this with relative ease? Well, we have a product called DC Expert, which is market-leading slotting and optimization warehouse design software, which can help us maximize our warehouse facility. We increase the flexibility to handle new or seasonal products. If we're talking on the 3PL side, or companies that do deal with seasonal products, the ability to change on the fly is huge. To be able to recognize that I have new products coming in which might have, maybe a 1,000% spike in activity at a certain time of the year versus another. We want to be able to stay ahead of these things and make sure that before we start picking them, we get them in the right place so we can be as efficient as possible. So included within DC Expert is a 3D drawing engine. The beginning of any sort of one of these optimization projects is obviously understanding what our warehouse looks like, the amount of space, and the amount of capacity that we actually have.
I think this is a great tool for people who are actually moving into a new warehouse or redesigning. They get to look at this, they get to see how many pallets they might hold, or whatever, and slot their SKUs.
Absolutely.
Beforehand.
Absolutely. What we can do with DC Expert, which John, for your business, it's definitely an opportunity where we can quickly and easily draw out our warehouse, our different kinds of storage medium, and have an automatic calculation as to how many base pallets we have, how many total pallets can we hold in the warehouse, and how many beams we're using, how many uprights we're using. So as you said, if we're reconfiguring our warehouse or we're starting from scratch, if we're doing greenfield, it can help with help with our capital budget process as well.
We had a situation, John, you and I, where we were looking at a client of mine where he was trying to get more storage in the same footprint, right? And we started to look at narrow aisles and, the potential of changing racking. And what I love about this is that it's not just about, gee, how would it look, but really what is the impact, right? What does it mean in terms of space and ultimately labor as well?
And we look at our actual slotting part of it as well. So once we're talking, once we're within DC Expert, if we have our warehouse drawn out, we know which kind of storage medium we're using, we know what our overall capacity is, then we can go into the slotting, and we can even incorporate this with your WMS or with the current, with whatever WMS you may be using, so they kind of speak back and forth to each other, so we make that whole integration process a little bit easier.
Let me ask you a question, right? So what's the shock value when you go through this process and you put this drawing together and you sit down with that owner, warehouse manager, whoever it might be, and say, look, maybe you're doing it right, maybe you're doing it all wrong. I mean, tell me, kind of what's their impression when you sit down with something like this?
When we go through a project, or when we're showing somebody DC Expert and what a slotting software, what a standalone slotting software can do, it really is the overall cost savings. DC Expert can do some things that you're not necessarily going to be able to do in Excel. You're not going to be able to do in a product that's only going to give you my ABC analysis. And as I've said multiple times already during this conversation, your A's here, your B's next, and your C's after that. That is one of the most basic ways we have of slotting. But what we can do with DC Expert is we can talk about zone picking, right? John, you mentioned zone picking. We can look at slotting by velocity, slotting by weight, by cube, by seasonality, custom algorithms. DC Expert just alone uses over 256,000 algorithms. So we can really make the slotting process as simple or as sophisticated as you want or as you need.
And the ability to change seasonal. I have customers that have thousands of SKUs. So the ability to change. Some are more popular at certain times of the year. They can take those and put them in a place where we can hit them, and pick them quicker and more efficiently by slotting it correctly.
Absolutely. And we can see the cube utilization as we're going through the slotting process. Obviously, we want to make sure that we have it as little dead space as possible. So this comes down to fitting the right product in the right location, if not the right storage medium altogether, John. So one of the questions that comes up almost on a daily basis when we're talking about any sort of slotting is what is the difference with Microsoft Excel, right? We get people asking us, say, we do this with Microsoft Excel, we slot once a year, why do I even want to look at a standalone product or a new product? What I usually say to that is, first of all, if we're slotting once a year, then we're not being as efficient as we could be. We've talked a lot about seasonality. If we're only slotting once a year and we deal with seasonal products, then there's a lot of times that we're picking and we're traveling too far, we're using too much labor, we're burning out our employees. There's a lot of different effects that can have. Not only that, but the fact that when we go through a standalone slotting software such as DC expert. One of the first things we can do is build that baseline, and we can tell the software, this is where my product is currently situated. This is how my warehouse is set up today. Now when I want to take a look and say, I want to slot based off of my velocity, or I want to slot based off of my tie high, or using crushability or toxicity factors, that's really the sky's the limit when it comes to different ways that we can slot. Then what I'm able to do with this kind of software is look at an item by item basis and say, where's the most efficient placement for every single product? See, what is it going to cost me to pick it today? What's it going to cost to pick tomorrow if I make these changes? What does it cost to actually move that product? Right? So the whole point here is breaking it down item by item so we don't make moves for little or no value.
I also think there's a whole element to this from a sales process. You know, too often in the industry, salespeople quote something on assumptions, and those assumptions are invalid, which make it a less than profitable client, right? Which is a lose-lose proposition. So here's a great way to do projections, you know. If I bring in this new customer, if I bring in these new SKUs, what does it mean if I do it here where I was thinking of placing it? Or, holy cow, if we shifted some things, now all of a sudden I'm getting much greater productivity and profitability out of my warehouse.
We're really taking a big part of the human element out of it, and we're looking at a scientific method to slot your products. We put in the information, you give the software your information about what you do on a daily basis, what you want to see out of it, and we let the data drive the decision making.
That's great. Question 2, I'm bombarded with software and hardware vendors telling me they can solve all my challenges. How do I determine what's best for me? This is something that John and I, you know, constantly dealing with, and I'm sure you folks as well. You know, everybody comes in as a salesman with the golden answer to solve all the problems. And if you're a hardware person, I have all the equipment, the conveyors and pick lines, and I could do it all. If you're the software person, I have the software that can do everything. It's accounting, it's transportation, it's warehouse management. And you have to be an educated consumer, right, John? You have to know what you need, your requirements.
Yeah, on my side, on the hardware, you know, you want to maximize your warehouse facility. Make sure you use all the cube. Use a system where, you know, it's tried. Don't be the beta site. But, you know, it really comes down to systems integration. You need to have a team like we've assembled here where you're integrating the WMS, you're integrating the hardware, and you make it where you're moving everything forward, and, you know, you have a proven track record, and you know, I think that that's the best way to do it. You have to build an architecture of all of these different components to make it work.
And something you said before, Josh, please expand on it. You know, I think today more than ever, making a bad decision could be horrific.
Yeah, and we've seen it firsthand. That kind of what you said. It's, you know I have a problem. There appears to be a solution in front of me. I'm gonna jump right into it without doing any kind of due diligence. And sometimes the cost to recover could put you out of business. So it is about making an informed decision and not going at it alone, as I think as you guys have kind of all said it's about.
One of the things we hear often is change or die. A lot of our customers say, we know we have to change or die. You don't want to make a bad decision because you're going to die that way. You really want to make sure that you get someone who's a systems integrator that can integrate this and make you more efficient and keep your business thriving.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when you do go forward with something like this, it's very important to have the warehouse people, the accounting people, the management people, the sales people, because if these folks aren't talking to each other, then, you know, things fall apart real quick.
I've always said that, you know, you definitely want to make the right decisions based on the numbers, based on the analytics. You can't discount that because it's such a big driver within the business. But as I'm sure all of you guys will agree, you've been in the business for a long time. When it comes to setting up a distribution center, even running a distribution center on a daily basis, there's an art form to it as well. So you want to, as you said, you want to make sure that you have the right people. You have the operations people, you have the analytics people, you have the integrators as well to kind of all have that little round table, kind of like what we're doing here, so we can make the right decisions to drive the business forward.
And, you know, one thing from a long time ago, there was a line, and just stayed with me forever, which is you can't manage what you don't measure. And, the metrics are critical. This is about people, processes, and technology. Warehouse people are a separate entity, and, they know what they do, they know how they do it, and they're sometimes resistant to change. But when you could show them, here's why we want to change, and let them see it and buy in, that's the way you're going to get, the end results that you desire.
Absolutely.
People make the difference. No matter what we put in, whatever equipment we put in, you need people to manage them, you need people that are on board and working the same, we're all going in the same direction. And I find that when we sit down with people and we explain to them what we want to do, they buy in, they feel part of it. Pickers, packers, whoever, everyone on the floor.
Well, you said it before, you can't stand still. In the world we live in, you must innovate, you need to invest wisely, and focus on continuous improvement if you want to stay in the game and survive and thrive.
Right. And let's be honest, there is an end game at some point, right? And we've seen, again, just talking from my end and seeing the mergers and acquisitions that are happening in the marketplace today, not having the right technology is a deal killer. It kills you today in terms of profitability, and it kills you 5 to 10 years from now when you eventually go to cash out. So, Sandy, what's your one takeaway? Let's go around the table real quick.
I think it is about innovation. It's really what excited me about putting on this webinar. This is a different way of looking at it, and you need to look at problems differently if you want to solve them. You can't solve them with the same line of thinking that created them.
John, how about you?
My takeaway is when you sit down like today and you get people that are experts in their field and bring them together, because we're all trying to work toward a common goal for our clients, that's going to work. And I think, if you take WMS, you take WMS consulting, the material handling component, the accounting component, you put it all together, it's a very powerful package for our clients. And I think people should really take a look when they're going to do things that way, as opposed to just going out and buying hardware, buying software, and so on and so forth.
And I'm gonna piggyback off you. You said power, and I always say knowledge is power, right? And you look to the degree of sophisticated information that a system can produce. We've gotten so far away from back of the napkin and very high level KPIs to very, very specific measures. You talk about being able to really sit back and make informed business decisions as an owner, as a key person in the company. That's the kind of information I want to have in front of me.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's about innovation, but it's also about collaboration as well, and getting some of the right people to make the right decisions. And even if those people happen to not be within your organization, there's obviously a lot of different companies, a lot of different industries, a lot of different people, kind of like what we're seeing around this table right now, that obviously have different ways to look at things, different experiences. And when everybody can come together, then we can make sure we make the most informed decisions, like you said, John, that end up having the most the most benefits for our customers in the end.
Well, I want to take this opportunity to thank Sandy, John, Neil for joining me today. This was a lot of fun, and
yeah, I just want to say one thing, and just for those who are listening and watching, if they want to get a copy of the webinar, to contact you, Josh, and
yeah, absolutely,
and find out more information about sharing and if they want any information at all, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. Happy to answer questions and provide more information about any of the topics today.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.